by a couple of you. Some people want to know how to put a quilt on the long arm machine to make sure that it stays square. So I'm going to go through what I do to put it on the quilting frame and how I keep it square while I'm quilting it. So today I have a quilt that I'm doing for charity, and this is the top. I have the backing and I have the batting. We have to have the backing be larger than the top. Fortunately for me, I have some very wonderful friends and clients, and they measure everything and they write a label on it and they make sure it's very, very square. If it doesn't come to you square, you have to square it up. Otherwise, putting it onto the long arm frame will just exacerbate any problems that you already have. With the top, you get the top as is. If it is poorly manufactured, you have to go back to the client and ask them to fix it. But generally, you're going to find a few surprises anyway with most people's quilts. So one of the first things that I do when I get someone's quilt is I measure it and then I press it. And that is a really good reason for pressing it, is that you get to see how it's constructed on the other side. If there are a lot of points coming together, you need to know that so that you're aware when your long arm machine is going across or coming up to these more difficult sections. The things that we need in addition to having a well-pressed top, I have an external bobbin winder. I have extra bobbins. I have the thread for this project. I have a TOA bobbin tension gauge to check the tension on the bobbins so that when you put it in the machine, it works well with the tension that's on the machine. I have a brush for cleaning out the bobbin case, and I have oil for re-oiling the bobbin case. Because it's metal on metal, you need to make sure that there's less friction. Less friction means better tension. Then of course I have pins and tape for marking the sections when I move and change position.
So Carolyn, what you doing?
I'm pressing the back side of the quilt top, and while I'm doing this, I'm checking for seam allowances and making sure that the seams are nesting the way the quilter intended.
Is that because it'll lie better that way?
It will lie nice and flat, generally speaking.
Do you have to often do this for people's quilts?
Some people's quilts are very good and I don't have to do this. I always do it with a customer or someone who's bringing their quilt to me that is new, so I understand their technique.
Oh, cool.
And what skills I have to bring to the game.
Right on.
I gave a quick press to the backing to make sure there were no egregious creases in it, and I found the center for the top and the bottom of the backing. Now, some quilts are square, some quilts are not. Some quilts are very directional, so you need to make sure you know where the top of your quilt is and the bottom, and which is left and which is right. We found the center and we marked it with pins. I marked them with pins, top and bottom, and I'm going to pin it to the marked leader that I already have. So that's the next thing. So we put our pin to the center of our leader, and I pin from the back on this, and I start at the very center, and I work my way to my left, and then I come back and I work my way to the right, and then I remember to take this pin out of the center. Ask me why that might be a problem. Okay, so I have pinned the top on, taking out my center mark, and I'm going to roll the top of my bottom. Let's pin the top of my bottom on. I haven't pinned the bottom of my bottom on yet, because I like to roll it up nice and even at this point. Because I do a double roll, which may seem like a little extra work for some people, but I find that the back lays nice and smooth. So you may notice here that I have pinned on the dotted line, so to speak. Pinning it nice and straight and even will make even tension on the back, and that's kind of important. I've tried the red snappers and they're great for small projects, but they take up a lot of throat space, top and bottom. So I prefer to use the pins because they have a very low profile. So what I'm doing now is I'm rolling it up and pulling off any extra threads that I find on the back as I do it, and making it nice and smooth here. but not too tight, because I'm going to re-roll it onto the bottom rail as I do this.
And as you're rolling it, you're doing what with the edges?
I'm making sure that the edges are even with each other, or trying to anyway. Close to the bottom of the bottom, I stop rolling and I switch depending at the other end. Okay, so I've got the back pinned at the bottom of the back and the top of the back with good side facing down, wrong side facing up. That's really important. Anybody who's ever made this mistake will only do it once.
Have you ever done it?
I've never done it. I've almost done it, but I've never done it. Okay, so now we're going to take up the slack, or I'm going to take the slack up. I have the ratchet on this side of the roller, and so while I'm going to roll this, I'm going to control the tension as it goes across so it feeds evenly. I've also have a center line marked here, and I've used 2 Wonder Clips on my tape measure to mark this thing. And then I'll roll it up, and then I will mark the edges of the backing. So that's what I'm going to do now.
You want help with that?
Sure, that would be lovely. Thank you.
Hope my butt doesn't get in the camp. Probably does. All right.
Okay.
I noticed it's already stretching. Just a little bit. It's flannel, isn't it?
It's flannel backing that's been pre-washed.
Okay. So now I should be doing this, right?
Just a gentle smooth.
Well,
If you
because
see wrinkles.
Yeah.
What I do now is I see as it rolls up, if the edges aren't even, I will come and give it a little smooth
There we go.
from the center out.
Okay.
And it goes both directions. So if you're doing this by yourself, you come every couple of rolls and just smooth it out.
Yeah.
Make sure there's no bumps, no creases. And this is especially important when you've cut a pieced back to make sure it lies nice and flat. And then I release the brake and then continue to wind for a couple more turns.
Would this be a good job for the quilty ladies to get their husbands to help on a regular basis? Or is it too much danger involved?
For a happy marriage, I would say no.
Don't have a husband's help.
Probably not. Okay. I've pinned the backing on, I've rolled it up nice and tight, I've laid the batting on the top, and I have marked on my blue tape the edges of the backing. This particular case, the batting is exactly the same size as the backing, so that's good. So the next thing we do is we do a basting line to hold the batting secure to the backing and to make a registration mark for our quilt top. And I use whatever is left on my machine from the last time I made a quilt. So I have a bobbin with some gold thread in it at the top, and the bobbin in the machine is actually white thread, which is good for a black background, so it'll give me a nice clean line to start, and the gold thread will be easy to see when I put the top on. I've also put my channel locks on so that as the machine goes across, it's not going to move forwards or backwards. It's going to give me a nice clean line to put our quilt top against.
I can't help but notice you do this from the back of the thing. You've done it so often, you could do comfortably from behind.
Yeah, it's true. The more practice you do, the better you get at it. And then I turned on the straight stitching and
Straight stitching?
the regular stitching. I've got large baste on here.
Ah, basting stitching.
Yeah, I did turn it on. There we go. So I'm just holding this flat. I'm not doing any stretching, and I'm going gently across. My machine has a speed limiter alarm, and it will let me know that if I'm going too fast by making a screeching, beeping noise.
You're just moving right along there.
This is not too big, not too fast. Slow and steady wins the race.
I'm going to zoom in here with the camera so you can see. Now you really can't see the gold thread, but you can see what Carolyn just sewed is the line, see the line right there, and it runs all the way. And you can see how it's just, if you butted the batting up against the leader, and a nice straight line as a reference line.
I have the batting basted down, and I put a little dot where the center is, and I have the center marked on the quilt top, and I put that roughly where the basting line is, the top of the quilt, roughly where the basting line is. And you can see it's got a little bit of a wave to it.
Yep.
I'm just gently smoothing this out. So that needs to be taken into consideration when we go to put it down. When I find that there is a wave like that, what I do for basting is I baste on a straight line that I have here. So I will take basting thread and I will baste down that line, and then I will also baste down this line because I can see there's a wave on the other side. I have the top on, and I have put my machine against the back of my hopping foot here against the fabric seam line here on this design, using my channel lock to check to see how true this line is, because the first border is what everybody seems to look. So as I'm going along, I will give it a quick little straighten and give it a little fluff, and then I will go back and I will baste it down using a large basting stitch. Just double check that twice. And I will keep the channel lock on during this part. You may have noticed that I have my ruler base on. That gives me a nice place to rest my hand. Not everybody has one. That's okay. This is just the method. So pull the bobbin thread to the top. Okay. And hold the threads, hit start.
So what are you doing now, Carolyn?
I am basting a square side using channel locks to get a nice straight line.
So because you're using a channel lock, that fixes the carriage, doesn't it, in one direction?
Yeah, it won't move left or right in this particular orientation.
And then you're making sure that the seam of the border lines up with the foot, keeping it square and straight.
Yep. So I have basted down the sides of the insides of the borders to make a square. Where your eye is going to go is to make sure that the center is square. One will see the corners here, and if that's not square, then your brain will figure it out. The outer edges, not so much. So since we've done that, we've noticed that there is a wrinkle, and I'm going to take an iron to it to try and smooth that out. And if it's not smoothing out, then I will spray it with some water and a little bit of spray starch, and then manually spread it out with my hands to make it flat and remove as many wrinkles as I can. Then when that's done, I'm going to do a tight baste right at the very edge.
Do you have any special type of starch you use?
Well, funny you should ask. There used to be a product that was readily available until the pandemic. And when the pandemic hit, people weren't going to the office, so there was no need for spray starch. There is spray starch available for quilters and specialty garment makers in the quilt stores, and it's called by many names. But what I use instead is a commercial laundry starch, and in this particular case it's called peel starch. They don't sponsor me, I don't have a sponsor, but it's a powder, and I can mix it in quantities that I need and in concentrations that I need. So if I need it stiffer, I add more of the starch, less water, and vice versa. If I just need a very light starch, I add a little less powder to the water ratio. Alright, my iron has steam and it's pulling up a lot of those wrinkles, so I may not need to starch it. And it's pulling in tight some of these loose sections of the quilt block. I'm just gently putting it on there. I'm not using any pressure at all. Just gently coming along and trying to ease in and let the fabric remember what it's supposed to do.
Because fabric has memory?
Anybody who's tried to iron out a crease knows that fabric has memory. Well, I hit it with a hot steam iron and it took practically all of the wave out of the border. And so I was able to put the edge basting stitch down without too much difficulty. So you can see the edge basting there. I've quilted the first section of the quilt and I've marked my starting points for the next section, and you may notice that there are some wrinkles in here. So I have a meter stick or a 40-inch yardstick, and I'm going to use that to smooth out from the center straight down. So it gets most of the wrinkles out that way. And then I'm going to check for square with the marks that I have on my guide at the front of the quilt. Now I did not put a crease in the center of the quilt. Sometimes I do. I'll do a fold into a very light crease, but since this isn't my quilt, I don't want to have to iron that crease out. But I did put marks here for the borders, and this border itself has actually shifted from the marks that I had from the first zone. So I will gently lift it and make it move over just a tiny bit. And it looks like I'm going to have to do some work to make sure that that stays nice and lined up. So I'll have to iron it again after I baste it. And something similar probably on this side. And for whatever reason this is a lot closer, but it needs to go towards the left. So we'll just gently ease that in towards the left. Smooth this all out. And one of the other things that I will do if I'm having a little bit of trouble is I will slide my round end of my yardstick, meter stick, in underneath and make sure that it will roll nicely underneath.
I've had that happen to me once where I didn't do what you just did, and I had a pucker in the batting.
Yeah.
Or something.
Nobody wants a pucker in the batting. But having the markers on the sides, the center, and here should keep it parallel to each other. So unless something goes horribly wrong with the quilting or how it's wound on the frame, as long as they're parallel, it should still be fairly square at the end of the day.
And so, if you don't mind me saying, you're going to repeat this process every time you quilt a section, and you just do what you did again.
Yeah, every time I quilt a zone or a section of the quilt, I always check for square and for parallel. It takes a little bit of extra time, so, well, unless it's something that it's for the dog to sleep on, I generally do this every time. Finished! It's finally done. It looks square. It looks like everything turned out just perfect with all the little all the tricks and tips that you would have seen in this. It works out really well. If you have any questions, put them in the comments below, and see you next time.